Pete Buttigieg did like a full 3-hour podcast, something that people were like him off over because he came across as like pretty earnest and convincing, which he did, but I still hate him, you know.
Like, I want you to be able to get up in the morning, and the first thing you do is you commute to work, and by the way, if you're on an EV, I want that to be affordable for you, or if you're on public transit, not to get back into the subway situation, but I want you to have good public transit to get to where you're going. And then when you get to that job, I want you to be paid well. And if you're about to have a kid, I want you to know that you're going to have parental leave when you have that kid. And if you don't want to have a kid, I want you to have the right to choose whatever kid, which means access to birth control and abortion and those things that give you the freedom to decide on that. And if you already have a kid,
it's pretty big. I just learned this right now by typing it. I typed in Pete Buttigieg on Google. Second thing following up on it was a podcast. First thing that followed up on it was wife, which is funny because he's gay. He's talking to that retard comedian who recently was like, I voted for Trump because Republicans are cool and it used to be Democrats are cool, and basically I have the mind of a 14-year-old boy even though I'm like 40. This guy, I'll admit it, you know, I'm not afraid to admit it. Very handsome guy. Wasn't this guy making like jokes about someone who actually got I don't remember. I don't believe in cancel culture. I'm not doing the cancel. Yes, I don't know. If it's true, then I said it earnestly. If it's not true, I said it ironically, basically. I'm Schrodinger's social justice warrior. Anyway, 2-hour, 50-minute podcast. Flagrant. Yeah, okay, I'm sorry. I don't keep up with the podcast circuit, you know. A pretty positive response for like an entrenched, I wouldn't say Pete Buttigieg is an establishment Democrat, but he wants to be, you know, on a largely right-wing platform. That's a pretty good response, you know. They're doing the audio clip, you know.
Think of the condition of our about, and they're really concerned anyway. Like, one thing
Squarespace does, they make it terrifying than...
It's like a big Squarespace ad. Yeah, I don't know. Anyway.
When you picked them up at school, I want that school to be good, not having its funding slashed while they set fire to the Department of Education. And then when you get home, I want you to be in a neighborhood that is safe and where you can breathe the air, because we didn't let them get rid of the Clean Air Act.
He made a very awful extended bit where he went into excruciating detail about raping Kendrick Lamar. Straight men are so fucking weird, man. Why they gotta jump through so many hoops? That's crazy. Is it because Kendrick's short? Because he's like lefty? I don't know. Sounds like something a straight man would say. Yeah. You know, like, it's like whenever there will be a video on Twitter of a guy with a big butt and he's just like doing whatever, and then rather than the guy saying he's got a big butt, they'll say like, man, I hope he doesn't get arrested because they're gonna have sex with his asshole in prison or something. You know? It's just the weirdest, like they can't just say they're thinking about it. They have to do this whole like, well, I'm not thinking about it, but some other guy will be thinking about it if hypothetically, you know. What the f are you talking about? Well, anyway, the whole point here is that Pete Buttigieg is making a compelling case for, dare I say it, abundance liberalism. Nah, not abundance liberalism. Liberalism as a vehicle for freedom, you know, like the party of choice, right? Obviously, Republicans are deeply authoritarian. So, you know, you're not really getting much more freedom in your life. They don't really open many opportunities for people. And so the cycle begins again. Yup. We're never escaping the cycle of samsara. They'll never be able to deliver on this shit, man.
And you don't have to think for one moment about whether the air you breathe or the water you drink is clean and clear, which actually takes a lot, because it means the government has to constrain those actors that would make you unfree by polluting the air and polluting the water. And then when you go to bed, I want you to know that your family's going to be fine, even if it's family like mine, despite there being some Supreme Court justice who wants to obliterate your family because it doesn't match his interpretation of his religion. Like, that's the life I want everybody to be able to live.
Yeah, I think
we can deliver that.
That's fine.
Unfortunately, like, we are caught in the cycle. The comedian on the podcast main argument was that Democrats should have a big alluring promise to solve things like build the wall, even if it wouldn't actually work. Well, the problem with this comedian is that he's an idiot, and like a lot of other idiots, rather than wanting to fix things, he just wants to be part of like a big rally so they can all say, "Oorah," while they pretend they're fixing a problem, but the problem doesn't actually get fixed. So we shouldn't listen to people like that. Like, one of the big problems we're dealing with in this country is that there are a lot of people like that, like subliterate, you know, motherfuckers who like drag the discourse down and don't understand anything and don't want solutions. They just want to feel like they're cool for participating in them. He's not like we shouldn't be appealing to his mindset. We should be trying to pull people out of his mindset. We're never going to be able to out stupid narrative Republicans or fascists or whatever. I'm sorry, it's not possible. Like, they're as stupid narrative as it gets. You're contradicting your own earlier comment, Vosh. Okay, bold opening to a statement, especially for adding me. You're risking 30 days on this one. You often say that people want narratives and fantasies, not actual solutions to things. I think people want narratives and fantasies. I just don't want them to want stupid narratives and fantasies. The problem is that for a guy like this, the desire to be part of a narrative solution has nothing to do with the actual solution. What I'm saying is you need a narrative to channel the existing solution, right? You can't just let it ride with a technocratic solution that doesn't energize people, you know? You need a narrative that captures people's interest, that holds their interest, that riles them up. But this guy ain't about that, because he's literally like, you know, oh, well, it doesn't even matter if it works or whatever. You just need to give a big rally, do a big oorah. You're not gonna, like, there needs to be a connection to reality is what I'm saying. There needs to be some tether to the material. 3-hour podcast, man. You know what? Give me a little taste. Give me a little taste.
Advertisement.
You're basically saying if you pay, have faith that it will get fixed.
No, I'm not saying that.
Okay,
I'm saying that
I back off.
I'm saying if people don't see the results, especially we're coming along saying like, okay, everybody's gonna have to like pay into this. They're gonna say, well, fuck off. I'm not seeing the results. Yeah. Right.
Were Pete's eyes always this blue? Maybe it's the beard. Maybe it's the contrast on his face. I feel like he's got. Yes. He looks different. Maybe it is the beard.
Now, I think that's a nuanced story, because the best results sometimes, especially when you're in safety, you know, my kind of a big part of my job, it wasn't just building, it was transportation, right? A big part of the results is what doesn't happen. Right. Good, bad things that don't happen.
You don't notice your school being good, you just notice when it's bad.
Yeah, and you don't notice your road being smooth, you just notice when there's a pothole in it, right? And you don't notice when an airplane doesn't crash, and you don't notice when you have clean, safe drinking water. By the way, that's okay, like that's the point. Like, you shouldn't have to worry about whether your drinking water is.
I really do fear a future where this guy wins the presidency, man. I feel like that might be the long-term worst case scenario. We could get like another Obama situation. We're never escaping. We're never escaping. The wheel keeps on rolling. Yeah, maybe we really are at the end of history. Yeah, maybe the end of history is just rolling 4-year cycles of fascism and neoliberalism. A friend of mine feels the same way. The terrifying thing about Pete Buttigieg, and I think most of you would agree with this, is that he's very smart. That's the worst thing. There are a lot of neoliberals who might be able to, like, you know, sort of take over a sinking ship and try to steer it, but things end up, like, the material conditions end up worsening anyway. I think Pete actually could turn things around for a bit. And that's the worst part. He'd be able to hold it together long enough. He'd be able to, like, prolong the worsening. It's very, very dangerous, you know? He could be so much more. Well, yeah, if he was a socialist or even a social democrat, but he's not. He can talk about freedom as much as he wants, man, but we know what ideology he represents. How much more freedom was there in your life between 2008 and 2016? Okay, ACA got passed. All right, granted. We got a compromise bill. We got a compromise bill that brought us a fraction of the way towards the baseline for like every other developed country. What's worse, Obama or Buttigieg, in your opinion? I don't know. Different circumstances, different time periods. Is he neoliberal? Yes, very much so. Yes. It's possible he doesn't believe in anything, and he might shift his positions a little more social democratic, like in a insincere effort to meet the changing historical moment, but I don't know. Do you still hate Jon Stewart? I didn't say I hate Jon Stewart. I just think that he's demonstrated some political tendencies that are not acceptable in this moment. But like, what? You cancel culture, motherfuckers. It's not 2015 anymore, okay? Hate Jon Stewart. I could get behind a Buttigieg presidency, though. Yeah, that's because you're running on the wheel of samsara. You don't even realize it's a wheel. You're so short-sighted, you don't see the curve on the floor you're running on. You think you're running down a straight track. You think eventually you're going to reach the finish line. You don't understand that you keep rolling around and around and around. There's a carrot hanging in front of you, except you're never catching it.
Clean. Yeah. Because if you did, you wouldn't be able to worry about whatever else matters to you in life. Yeah. So I don't think anybody can argue that the American taxpayer has gotten their money's worth.
Yeah.
I think there's lots of reasons for that. Part of it is, though, that we underinvest. And we underinvest not because that the overall tax rates are too low. I don't think that most people should be paying more in taxes. I do think certain people should be paying much more in taxes. And that's where we get to like the giant multi-billion-dollar corporation that figures out a way to do their books and pay zero.
Yep.
Right?
And
When
then
they are
brag
doing
about
just
it.
fine.
Why is Warren Buffett bragging about it?
Well, I mean, it's look,
Legit, though, who is the sauce? Well, Pete Buttigieg has the sauce to be president. At least he will soon. He's building up to it. He's charging his power or whatever. But I don't want him to be president. So what are we hoping for? Bernie to run again? I don't know. Hoping for a miracle, I guess. I guess. We'll see about AOC. I don't know. Something amazing, I guess. Me too, kid. Me too.
Tell him to pay up. Why the like don't?
But we can't. You can't blame him for using the rules of the system.
I actually like him calling attention to.
I find
because
that
if they don't, if the whole capitalist system,
everyone here is very well dressed. You seeing what I'm seeing? We got some good looks in here. I like that.
Because if they don't, if the whole capitalist system, for good and for ill, is that if you don't play that to your advantage, somebody else will, and they will beat you, right? So instead of
is the main issue with Pete that he's like pro-establishment? I'm not understanding the position here. There are two problems with Pete. The first one is that he doesn't believe in anything. He's very like markedly insincere, and you know that if you follow him. Like if you're familiar with how he is in his career, he doesn't believe in anything, which is a serious issue when you need to believe something to combat the times here. But the second problem is that like in lieu of having personal sincere beliefs, he defaults towards the neoliberal position. And I'm not even talking about the bread fixing or whatever, or even like his previous run or his previous positions. He talks about freedom, right? Like what the Democrats want is for you to have more choice, more options, but everyone is getting strangled by capital, right? Like more and more wealth is getting siphoned out of society into the hands of the ultra wealthy. It's getting sucked up into private equity. It's getting sucked up into Wall Street, you know? Less and less wealth is circulating among the people who actually live and breathe, and more of it's sitting in bank accounts and options and offshore accounts and so on and so forth, right? And he will do nothing about that. Like, we're dealing with a fundamental existential crisis of global civilization, and it's the relationship between the global economy and the average person. And that is the reason why we are where we are right now with Trump, right? Like Trump didn't happen out of nowhere. Ennui about the decaying status quo alongside oligarchs backing Trump because they benefit from having a, reckless, egotistical, megalomaniacal sociopath in charge, rather than some like Tweedly administrator. A lot of them have bought in on the Kool-Aid, Most of the ultra wealthy, most of the wealthy people associated with Trump as well are nakedly corrupt and self-interested. There's no pretense anymore that they're doing what they do for the greater good. Effective altruism, that fake movement, is dead. It was dead from the get-go, but like it's more dead than ever before. The idea that wealthy people are using their wealth to steer the government or society in a positive direction, it's not true. And Pete Buttigieg can't do anything about any of this. He can't. His ideology forbids him because neoliberals think in market solutions. It's all public-private partnerships, It's all private investment. It's all, well, we're going to get, a contract bid for it. They can't nationalize. It's not even a part of their model, right? It's not even like on the table. Now, again, he doesn't believe in anything. So maybe he insincerely adopts some talking points, some more progressive, more economically progressive solutions. But you need a real firebrand to deal with this. You're up against global capital. It's literally, without exaggeration, the most powerful coalition of interests ever assembled in all of human history ever. Nothing else even comes close. The Catholic Church in the Middle Ages, nothing. The Roman Empire, nothing. Mongolian Empire, nothing. China, nothing else comes close. We're dealing with so much money and so much power. The only thing we have going for us is that it's loosely organized. That's it. It's loosely organized, guided mostly by an overriding set of normalized interests, laws, and economic principles, rather than the wealthy people all getting together in their monthly boardroom meetings to discuss what conspiracy they're going to play out in real life, what Deus Ex, subplot they're going to do next, right? For the most part, these people are stupid and loosely organized, but they're still very, very powerful because we let them have literally all the money. We let them have all the goddamn money. So, yeah, that's my problem with Pete Buttigieg. And he's just smart enough that he might be able to pull it off for a bit. And look, the country would be much better run under Pete Buttigieg than almost any other guy out there, right? That's currently viable for the presidency. Certainly more so than Trump. And he's a smart fella. He could play the game pretty well, I bet you. He might be able to do some pretty impressive stuff within the limits of his ideology. But only ever that. Best example of this is when the Clintonites defunded public housing and replaced it with housing vouchers, which contribute to housing cost inflation because it neglects the supply issue. Yeah, I mean, it's neoliberalism, right? Is ideology alone really enough to steer the world in the right direction? Well, you need to be informed by the right ideas. If the problem the world is facing is capital, then yeah, you need to be anti-capital, or at the very least, you need to be aware of that dynamic, right? But Pete Buttigieg doesn't even talk about oligarchy the way AOC and Bernie Sanders do. Like, he doesn't even engage in the militant pro-working class rhetoric. That's the bare minimum right now. Do you feel the same way about Mark Carney? I only support Mark Carney in that I think he's a good oppositional force to the United States. He's not going to fix the problems that Canada's really suffering from. He's not going to challenge capital, but he might challenge the United States.
Somebody to leave money on the table. We should just fix the rules so that they're more fair. And that's the investment side. But the other side of it is throwing money at the problem is not enough. Like, it is clearly true. And this is the other point about the Second Avenue subway, which, again, I will defend to my death that it is a good project.
Have you been on it?
We can't, dude.
We haven't built it. We haven't built it.
You haven't built it yet?
It's not there yet.
I remember reading about this in 2008 on the subway. They had ads coming in 2015, Second Avenue subway.
Right. So that's my point.
And we were so excited, dude. There was like
parades. I was excited.
There was parades in New York City.
I was excited.
Dude, I'm telling you, there was parades in New York City. There was a memo sent out there like,
I'm an idiot, but I feel when people say these things, oh, the buck gets passed on to the consumer. That only happens because the corporations have exploited profits to the highest possible degree to keep their share price as high as possible. Things have gotten more expensive over the past 50 years every year. It's not just inflation. I think corporate greed is a big part of that. So why is it that now that there's a tariff, their profit has to stay the exact same and nobody's looking at them as perpetrators of any kind of greed? And it's just, oh, the United States government is deciding here's a measure to help middle America, and now we have to eat that.
But how is making middle America pay more a measure to help middle America, right? I mean,
well, I would, and I do think I get more frustrated with Democrats because I want very badly to be that. I definitely do not identify as conservative, but I find there's this. When I go to Middle America, and I'm sure you go there. We travel the country. Yeah, you live there. Yeah, that's what I meant to say. But it's like, oh, there's like decay in some of these places, and it doesn't feel like the party that I want to identify with has any empathy for them. And this, to me, was an idea that could help bring jobs back there. And I don't think the execution has been great from what I'm seeing, but this could help them. Why don't we look at any measure that could help them beyond?
It is worth noting that, like, even among Trump supporters, you can go to basically any American, right? Basically everyone thinks the little guy, is getting screwed over. Like, the idea that you as an individual are being fucked over by the powers that be is almost universal, even for people who are, like, kind of wealthy, right? Like, even small business owners or people making a six-figure income, like, everyone believes that. And all of them are correct, or almost all of them, to varying extents, right? And the fact that Democrats don't play into that is actually psychotic. Like, I would bet you a majority of Trump voters believe that corporate greed is hurting middle America, which is insane, but I bet you it's true. And the average Democrat doesn't even talk about this. Bernie and AOC do, but the average, like Biden doesn't take an oppositional stance towards corporations. He's pro-labor. I mean, Biden did some good stuff for unions, but Biden wasn't going out there. I mean, he could barely talk, right? But, like, Biden wasn't going out there and talking about, like, the Americans have suffered under corporate greed for long enough. It's too spicy. Trump will do it. I mean, he'll do it inconsistently, right? Obviously, because he's lying, but he'll say it. He'll say stuff like it. We'll end the segment in a sec. I'm actually interested in this. It's an interesting look into this. We haven't talked about Pete in a while either. I want to see how Pete responds to this. Because, you know, again, like the oppositional rhetoric here is absolutely necessary.
And let's keep things the way they are, because the way status quo is not helping.
Yes, I agree on that. Yeah, I think that's really important. And I think what my party has to do is respond to this in a way that doesn't make it sound like our whole argument is let's just go back to 2024, right? Like, things like this, moments like this, movements like the one that's in charge of the White House right now, don't spring up in a country or an economy where everything's going along fine. And look, I lived this too. I grew up in South Bend, Indiana. People think South Bend, they know Notre Dame.
Notre Dame, yeah.
The big employer that propelled South Bend wasn't Notre Dame, it was Studebaker. Studebaker made cars. It was before the big three, it was the big four. And we were one of them. It dominated our city, grew our city. And then in 1963, they shut down. That's 20 years before I was born. And we
also, Dems need to start talking about how years of Republican rule in rural areas has destroyed small town America. They don't, because they're pussies. If you ever want like pure evidence that Democrats falter based on ideology alone, not even them being like paid to lose or whatever, but they literally like ideologically don't understand how to win. The fact that they don't attack Republicans for mismanagement of very poor rural red districts is insane. There are like deep red rural areas that have been deep red for decades that are just heinously mired in corruption and mismanagement, and all of these areas are rotting. They're rotting like and I'm sorry for being listen, okay, wokeness can't stop me. I'm gonna do it. I'm gonna be racist. They're rotting like sub-Saharan Africa, basically. Like, we're not just talking poor areas. We're talking areas where you'll find people dying of like preventable. You've got people hobbling around on like swollen diabetes feet. You've got people who like have mosquito netting up around like broken in windows and like rotting the wall boards. Like, literally, you can like Google Maps, you know, rural Appalachia or whatever, you know, West Virginia. You can just take a look through this. Some of these areas legitimately, like, it's poverty the likes of which is difficult to understand, you know? But Democrats are so addicted, you know, like Hillary Clinton in 2016, make America great again. America's already great, you know, like they just can't admit it. I wouldn't say that that's racist. It's an apt comparison. I was preemptively responding to, because people will be like, dude, it's like a third world country in here. And then smarmy, do nothing lefty motherfuckers on Twitter will be like, Americans, when they see something in America, wow, this is like brown people, disingenuous pieces of shit, motherfucker. When you say this looks like a third world country, that is not you saying, wow, it looks like black people managed it. You're just acknowledging, it's just a relative comparison of poverty. Pieces of shit.
We were still dealing with it 20 years later. We were still dealing with it 50 years later when I became the mayor there at the age of 29.
What color are the people in your head? When I say sub-Saharan Africa, I'm imagining a bunch of white people walking around with like huts and stuff. That's what I imagine, because I'm different than you guys. I'm built different. You know that one painting of the like white guy, he's like the Sphinx, or he's like a pharaoh on the history textbook or whatever? It's like that guy. He's like smiling and walking around. They're all wearing like polo shirts. Maybe we could get USAID back if we convince Trump supporters that's what West Africa looks like.
And what had happened was, I mean, when we were going to school, I would go in between just acres of collapsing factories that literally looked like a war zone. I have been to war zones that look very similar to the way a lot of places in the industrial Midwest, like where I grew up, looked, because of some of these things you're talking about. Right. Which is why I think there's an appeal to saying, we're going to bring back manufacturing, right? And by the way, again, I don't want to like move away from what I was saying that we shouldn't go back to where we were, because I think a lot needs to change. But I would point out that in our entire lifetime, the year when there was the most investment in factories in the United States, the most factories being built, was last year. Because there were a lot of policies, the chip stuff, the manufacturing stuff.
See, notice how he's talking about this problem that is very much caused by the robbing of the middle class by the wealthy. Not just money being siphoned out of the regular working people to the wealthy, but also money being siphoned out of small town America by mega corporations that are all like headquartered, you know, Stockholm or New York City or Delaware or whatever, you know, you pay money to a local mom and pop store, that money stays in your town. You pay money to Walmart, that money gets siphoned off into dividends and stock options or whatever for people who live all around the world, you know? But he's not answering that. Like, he can't say that. You understand what I mean, right? Like, if I was in his position right here, like, that would be what I would talk about right now. Like, that would be my lead-in. But for him, it's like, well, Biden was doing the Build Back Better program.
To get the more of the green economy stuff to be built on U.S. soil, that led to a lot of these factories. Now, a lot of them are still in construction as we speak.
Because, like, it used to be, again, keep in mind, it used to be like if there was a factory in Illinois or whatever, that factory was probably kind of local. Like, maybe you have local jobs, but the money circulates locally. Even if we rebuilt domestic manufacturing, that ain't happening again. You think Taiwan building a chips manufacturing plant, like in Alabama or whatever, you think that money's gonna, like, circulate in the local community? That factory's gonna be worth tens or hundreds of billions, and that money is going to circle around the world. It's not staying there. The economic apparatuses that we have built do not allow money to stay local anymore, which is why the only places that still have money circulating around are cities, because cities are where the global capital accumulates in pools. You know? Like blood to a bruise.
Actually open, some of them still haven't. But right now in Kokomo, Indiana, I just read a story today about 370 workers at Stellantis who just got laid off. Yeah. Auto workers who got laid off because of the tariffs. So this is a tool that you can use for sure. But it's absolutely critically important that you know what you're doing when you do. And if you're just making shit up as you go along, or if you're doing it for a reason that's actually less about helping middle America and more about consolidating power, which is what I think is actually happening. We can get into that.
Yeah.
Then it's not going to work. But I don't want to completely disagree.
Wait, what? Are they not going to pay the workers of the factory? A lot of the workers are Taiwanese, and the money that the factory generates is going to the global corporation, the Taiwanese Chips Manufacturing Corporation. I forget the name. It's like their one company on their stock exchange. And when those employees that live locally go and use their money, it's going TSMC, thank you. When their money that they get from working at that factory in Arizona, when they receive it, when they get their paycheck, what are they going to spend it on? They're going to spend it at Walmart, Target, Dollar General. And where does that money go? That's not staying in the community. That money's also circulating. It's going into the stock options and dividends. It's going around the world. Everything goes everywhere. Money never stays anywhere anymore. It used to, it doesn't anymore. That's why Black Wall Street worked. You know, Tulsa race riots, when white people got real uppity, real mad about how black people in Tulsa were making an effort to go shop on Black Wall Street. Why did Black Wall Street work? Well, in most parts of America, the American South, when black folk wanted to spend their money, where'd you spend it? White-owned general store. Where'd the white guy spend it? Not at black businesses, I can tell you that. So the money ended up getting siphoned out of the black community. Even when black people were being paid fair wages, and oftentimes they weren't fair, that money would end up getting pulled out of the black community because black people would shop at white establishments, but white people wouldn't shop at black establishments. So black people over in Tulsa were like, okay, well, we're going to shop local. When you want your clothes fixed up, you go to a black tailor. When you want groceries, you go to a black grocer. And they built their own Wall Street, and it worked. They were able to keep the money in community, and they enjoyed relative prosperity. So then white people burned it, bombed it. You know how it is. So increasing access to high-paying jobs isn't going to improve things? Not enough. No, that's the problem. That's why I keep saying that Buttigieg is an ideological trap. That's why he scares me. Because he can't fix this. Well, I mean, he could. He could just be a socialist if he wanted to. I mean, if he really wanted to. But that's what I'm talking about here. That's what I'm talking about. Like, you can talk all you want about bringing manufacturing back. Nothing's going to change, man. Nothing's going to change. All of these broader economic conditions are being created by sets of rules and policies and norms that people like Buttigieg, not only can they not question them, they can't even see them. To them, it's just the way the world works. You talk to the average neoliberal about problems such as what I am describing to you, you get a blank stare. And not because they're stupid. It's just not a component of the way they look at the world. That being said, economists are familiar with what I'm talking about. I'm talking about something that is of a priority to the socialists, but economists talk about like the velocity of money all the time, right? So it's not even like you have to be a crazy lefty to even get the econ. It's not like niche cult knowledge. It's just that liberals just ignore this because their ideology at this point, especially the neoliberal variant of the ideology, exists to serve capital. It's molded by a set of, you know, unquestioned biases towards that outcome.
Agree with what you're saying earlier. Like, yeah, part of what's happening is, like, a part of why things cost more is that they actually cost more. But also, we've seen a lot of expansion of the corporate profits that people cash in on, right?
Yeah.
Which help to explain why a lot of things cost more. But to me, the answer to that is, okay, let's have a fairer tax system.
How do we do
that? Says, well, I mean, at risk of sounding simplistic, like, you pass a law, like, we can do this, right? It's not like
what
profoundly
law?
mysterious.
For example, it's like it's not going to be income tax, right? Because they'll find a way to not have income.
So you can adjust capital gains, right? It doesn't have to be like.
Isn't Vosh literally leading himself towards tariffs right now? No, tariffs don't fix literally anything that I'm describing. Literally nothing that I'm describing is fixed by tariffs at all. The process of wealth extraction out of these communities can be done domestically as well. Like, even if you magically made it so we can't trade with anywhere else in the world, like, congrats, you've collapsed the global economy or whatever. But even if you did that, like, everything that I'm talking about would still happen. It would just happen out of poorer areas into wealthier areas. This is fundamentally a capital accumulation problem, not an international trade problem. All you do by making trade international is widen the scope of the game that's being played, right? Rather than it being on a national stage, it's international. But the process of hyper-selective accumulation happens either way. Why would you assume making the field smaller would change the nature of the game? Like, the rules are going to change because you've limited the number of players from 8 billion to 350 million? That doesn't make any sense. Oh, yeah, you know, capital flows and accumulates when you've got everyone in the world playing in the same economic game. But then once it's just 350 million people, then surely the results, the processes, you know, the dividends will be divided equally? No. You could produce these same problems in a community of a few hundred people.
All the way at the level that it used to be.
Even with capital gains, you're only taxing them when they cash out, and a lot of these guys won't cash out. They just take loans against their investments, and then loans aren't taxable, so they live for free.
Right. So that's where the idea of wealth taxes come in, right?
And what is that?
If you're just sitting on it, at a certain point, especially if you're past a certain point in how much you're sitting on, you got to contribute a little bit. I mean, this is not a novel. Property taxes are that way, right? Like, you don't wait, depends where you live, but usually you don't wait until you sell a home to have to pay property tax on every year. Like, you contribute a little bit of the value of the real estate you're sitting on.
Right.
And that goes to, you know, the county roads and the school and the sheriff's department, or whatever else you count on, right?
Despite not believing in anything, you think Pete argues in good faith, or is this just a grift to him, or do you think he's just another play it safe Dem? I think that he's arguing in good faith here, and I think he's being earnest, and I think that he believes what he's saying. But I also think that what he's willing to say and argue for will shift according to the needs and expectations of the moment. I just don't believe in his sincerity. But I have no reason to believe what he's saying right now is being said dishonestly. And most of what he's saying is sensible from a liberal framework.
So there is a way to do that nationally.
But
we just haven't had the political will to do it.
Close that gap? I don't think it's going to close that gap.
I mean, if you had
Also, by the way, you could run America as like a paradise without raising taxes. Like, so much of the problem we're dealing with is wealth being siphoned away even after the government gets a hold of it. Like, the reason we spend so goddamn much money on Medicare and Medicaid is because our government feels the need to pay market prices, highly inflated market prices, for the services that they rebate you for when you're old or poor or whatever, and take advantage of them, you know? Why the should somebody on government health insurance have to make the government pay full price when the full price in question has been inflated 20 times over because of all the middlemen and administrators? Wouldn't it make more sense to just have a government-run healthcare system where you go in and it's priced like at the amount that it actually costs to do it? No, that makes too much sense. Yeah, that's true.
all of these add, well, you have pieces of that,
a lot of
right?
pieces. No, I'm not saying we shouldn't do it. I think that there is this feeling, this sentiment, I think that Akash was tapping into as well. And there's two things. Like, you seem like someone who's very knowledgeable and very aware of all these things. You know these people that were fired in this random factory in, what'd you say it was, Iowa?
Kokomo, Indiana, Howard County.
In Indiana, right? It's like the average person might not know about that. They don't know about these factories being built, but you have to meet the average person where they feel emotionally. Yeah. And like, I think you do a really good job, and I've seen a lot of your interviews, is like acknowledging the emotions of the people that you're talking to before giving them evidence that might be contrary to them. Yeah. Instead of this like finger wagging.
Well, that's just not true at all. Medicare reimburses way lower than commercial insurance. I mean, if you want to get into the nitty gritty, both commercial and Medicare reimburse at varying rates and like at massively inconsistent levels. Like, if you go to the ER and you get like a Band-Aid put on a scratch that you got in your knee from falling down, they charge you, what, $6,000 or whatever, you know, for funsies. You've got insurance, you know, for the ER. It's possible they pay the amount they would have charged you off the fraction. It's possible they pay a fraction of it. It's possible they only charged you that much because they wanted to charge insurance that much, but then they have an exclusive deal with that insurance provider where they negotiate it down to 1/10 the settled amount, whereas you would pay the full amount. Like, to be honest, the truth is, it's psychotic. Like, you know how monkeys hang themselves when the median voter is explained to them? Humans hang themselves when the American medical system, when the insurance system is explained to them. There's no way around it except that whether they're getting reimbursed by you, private insurers, Medicare, Medicaid, the government, whatever, an enormous amount of the money you pay after a medical procedure is going towards bullshit. It's going towards dividends, stock options, administrative bloat. It's going towards some, you know, fat Cayman Island offshore illegal tax haven account or whatever. Okay? It's insane. It's not natural to go in for an ER visit and be charged $6,000 to wait in a room for an hour, and then they look at your heart and they say, yeah, your heartbeat looks fine. It's not natural to get blood work done and they charge you $600 for putting your vial in a centrifuge alongside 500 other vials, and they're like, oh yeah, look in the microscope for 2 minutes, oh yeah, you look fine or whatever, haha, $600. It's insane. I'm sorry, we've all heard the rant before. I'm just like, it's there is so much money, there is so much productivity and wealth in this country, in the world, and it's just bullshit. It gets used on nothing. It's like a waste. It does not. It doesn't enrich anyone. It's just like an abstract description. It's just like zeros at the end of a balance sheet on someone who will never use or need it.
Approach, which is like, oh, you're stupid if you don't agree with me. Yeah. Really important. But just quick, like, I think the average like American isn't even aware that like what Amazon makes a year and what they pay in taxes. Like, I think they paid $0 last year.
Yeah, a whole bunch of these corporations.
And I get what they're doing, and it's like they're writing off losses from other parts of the business, or they're reinvesting.
Isn't this the type of thing you want Dems to do to beat the GOP? I think it's good that Pete Buttigieg is doing this, but again, like, he's a liberal. I'm sorry, man, we're past that moment in history. And like, literally, I know it comes across as like really partisan on my part, and I'm kind of repeating the point here, but I mean it. Like, that's really, really, really important. You know, that's a very meaningful difference. There's a difference between a guy, you know, who can intelligently analyze the situation and come up with, you know, middling. He can't come up with a solution.
That money and growing the business. Yeah. And I don't want the pendulum to swing so far that you can't start a business and you can't grow and thrive. And I think that's like one of the great things about America. Yeah. But there has to be this middle ground. And if we don't do something about it, the American people should at least be aware of the, I don't want to say the CEOs, but the people that own these companies that are essentially stealing from the American people and using the system.
See, like, look, even to Trump supporters, like, it's the idea that you're getting screwed over by these big corporate dipshits. I mean, this is an almost universally accepted idea. It's like everyone believes that shit, you know? But notice how Buttigieg isn't even using that language. He's talking about the need for a more robust tax system, but he's not using accusatory language. He can't identify the bourgeoisie as the enemy.
We should be aware of who they are. Now, I'm not saying we should do anything to them, but they should be shamed.
Or taxed.
If they're not going to pay
Look at that. Like, he's taking a reactionary position relative to this dipshit Trump supporter. This guy is like, yeah, I fucking hate these wealthy assholes who are stealing from the American people. And people to judge us are like, well, I didn't say we hate the bourgeoisie. I was just saying we should amend the tax code. We just have to tweak the numbers a little bit. See, he's steering. Like, this is what I mean, man. He's steering the conversation away from the antagonistic dynamic, the fucking, the contradictions.
Taxes, you're going to pay it emotionally. Because that, like,
I don't really care about their emotions. I just want to tax them.
I do think there's a sociopathy to these people that you might underestimate.
Yes, true, but like maybe they're partners.
Literally, like these two guys are like, yeah, the wealthy people are evil and we hate them. Give us answers, Buttigieg. And Buttigieg is like, well, I don't hate wealthy people. I just want to adjust numbers on a balance sheet. Motherfucker. Don't you know your ideology is dead? You're not going to get voted in this way. Well, I'm terrified that you will. And prolong things. Bro would have just said tax the plantation. Yeah, seriously.
Like, there will be no more chick flights to space.
He looks retarded with that mustache. He looks really handsome. I'm not going to have you. Let's be serious here. Come on. He looks really good. Looks like fucking OSS 117. I'm not going to. Come on. You just like corny mustaches? Yeah, maybe I do. Maybe I do. He's super racist. I'm not talking about his personality, am I? I'm talking about his mustache.
Promise you, after the reaction to this, there'll be no more chick flights in space. I promise you, it will not happen again. And the next one that happens, it will have like a real purpose.
That's a fight when they...
Oof, I didn't sign up for 1 hour of Vosh sucking off fascists for fake-ass populism. Out of curiosity, how much does COINTELPRO pay these days? Well, after a long shift of tweeting, like, what have Palestinians done for the Black Lives Matter movement? What, like, I mean, is this like overtime or is it part of the same docket? There's like, how do you mark wages on that? I'm just curious. You got to be abusing overtime, right? Because cops do it, and you're kind of like a cop.
Get home. When she gets home, he's gonna be like, "You see how much shit I had to deal with for you to go to stupid fucking
to have a
space."
girls trip to the moon.
Also, guys, tour dates May 9th and
All
10th.
right,
Virginia
all
Beach,
right, all right.
June
Okay,
9th.
I think we get the point. I think we get the point. Legitimately, in the span of less than 20 minutes, these two comedians reached class consciousness, and Buttigieg is now working overtime to put the class consciousness back in the bottle. To be clear, I don't think they authentically reached class consciousness. I think that Buttigieg is so married to a system, or to the system of neoliberalism, or to the ideology or the framework, that he is like actively dissuading people from adopting narratives that are both politically and rhetorically advantageous. Like, it will make you a better, more effective politician if you rally people based on antagonism against an opponent. And it will make you a better politician in terms of like actual practiced outcome, in terms of what you change, if you identify that the wealthy, the bourgeoisie, there is a capital inequality that is causing these problems. It's not just the tax code, it's not tariffs, internationalism, globalism, whatever. It is the processes by which wealth is extracted from ordinary people up to them, to their systems, you know? But like, yeah, Buttigieg is like, no, don't hate them, don't hate them. I just want to fiddle with the numbers. So would you prefer that instead of suggesting actual solutions like a wealth tax? Scheherazade, how is it that every time I see your name in chat, you are trying to bait me? I genuinely don't know how sincere. Is it always a bit with Scheherazade? Am I being persuaded with 1,000 tales of nonsense? What am I? Is that it? Like, you're trying to delay your execution every time you chat up? You're like, well, let me craft something that will fucking delay because he feels more incensed to engage with it rather than just hit the right click 30 days. A wealth tax would be helpful, but you need to hate the bourgeoisie. I'm sorry, dude. It's us versus them, man. I don't know what you want. The oligarchy literally stole the country. They're arresting judges today Trump's cabinet is all billionaires, and all of them every day go to the news and they're like, we're going to crash the economy for fun. Haha. Also, we fucking hate you. Like, how open does it have to be? This is an oppositional. They are both like it used to be the wealthy were just structurally killing us, like all the norms and rules and systems that extracted wealth. But individually, the ultra wealthy were mostly doing their own thing, right? Not to say they weren't complicit, but they were not organized as a political force. Now they are. It's not sufficient to just go like, dog, we need to tax the wealthy or whatever. That wouldn't fix these issues. Cut their wealth in half. The problem will still, dude, if you cut the wealthiest people in the world's wealth by half, like you literally slashed it in half, congratulations. They now have the same amount of wealth they did 3 years ago. Wow. Give them another 3 years, they'll double it back up. And all the money the government gets from those wealth taxes, where does that money go? Pentagon, public-private partnerships, no bid contracts to Halliburton, Medicare, Medicaid disbursements that end up going to the pharmaceutical industry, to the medical industry, right back up to the top. Oh, maybe it goes out in Social Security checks. Oh, okay, Social Security checks, fine. So wealthy people, where do they take their checks? To Walmart, to Target, to the Dollar General. Oh, maybe they build infrastructure. Well, I like roads. Who are they going to pay to build those roads? Construction companies? Multinational firms? Where does that money go? Motherfucker, it all goes straight back to the top. It's a siphon. We have every reason in the world to make these people an overt political enemy. Trump won, making powerless people overt political enemies, and it worked for him. And we have an actual, organized, extremely detrimental, evil group of motherfuckers who are ruining everything for everyone. And Republicans, even Republicans, everyone in the country is like, yeah, we feel like we're getting screwed over by big corporations. And then Pete Buttigieg races forward. No, we just need to up taxes. I'm not talking about any of that crazy fuck the rich nonsense. We just need to raise taxes. Fuck you, Pete. These hosts are friends with those people, though. Yeah, I'm not praising these hosts at all. I'm talking about what needs to be done. I love you too, Scheherazadian. I feel like Bernie and AOC would say the same thing. I want the rich to pay their fair share of taxes. Yeah, but the Bernie and AOC's ideology and rhetoric are both explicitly oppositional towards the ultra wealthy, towards the bourgeoisie. It's not just like, oh, we need to fiddle with the numbers. They talk about it like a class war, which it is. It's a class war that they're winning by a lot, you know? At least they understand the need for the oppositional framing. Well, anyway. So what do you do? Just confiscate the wealth? There are a number of things that can be done to fix the siphon. But you're talking about a system that was deliberately created through over a century of meticulous crafting by lawmakers who either were the bourgeoisie or were financed by the bourgeoisie. We're not talking about a one law solution here. Like, you're talking about the fundamental structure of the global economy, which was all built. Global capitalism, we built it. And by we, I mean Americans. After World War II, America, the wealthy, industrialized nation that wasn't turbo-fucked by by World War II, we shaped the global economy. We determined it. We laid out the rules. We determined the engagements. Countries that wanted to deal with us, they agreed to our rules. We built the World Bank and the IMF. When the Soviet Union fell, who was waiting for their collapsed countries? Us, our economists, our investors. We wrote their rules, or we favored the people on their side who would then write rules that were favorable to us. Over the past 100 years, we, America, wrote the global economic rule book. And I'm not gonna lie, man, like fixing that's not a one law kind of deal. But you have to understand the oppositional nature, right? Like, it's very complicated. It's not as simple as slavery. You ban slavery. Okay. I mean, you still had Jim Crow after. And fixing Jim Crow was also pretty complicated. We still litigate that to this day. I mean, even fixing Jim Crow, you had constitutional amendments. We still have laws, state and federal, municipal, battling over redlining, shit's still going on. Redlining still exists to a large extent in many areas. Like, a lot of the underlying systems never even got meaningfully addressed. People will be like, well, what do you want? We ended slavery. Yeah, that was 150 years ago. What's happened since then? It's better now, for sure. Problem ain't fixed. And you know what's 100,000 times more complicated than Jim Crow? Global capitalism. I know I'm rambling. I'm just saying. The step number one is understanding what the battle is. And Pete doesn't want you understanding it. Because again, ideology. He just wants to be a competent administrator of a failing, ruinous ideology. Anyway, acknowledging that it's complicated is important too, because people who engage in like the revolutionary LARPing, like, let's bring out the guillotines. What you have to understand is that you could do that, but then like different people would just replace the existing ones in the same systems like immediately, you know? Like, you're not, like, it's, the problem is so much more complicated than that. It's so complicated. Remember what ended up happening in France or Russia? There isn't really a way to fix it. Well, I don't think that necessarily. I think there are ways of fixing it. Keep in mind that FDR was able to successfully, like, wrangle, you know, an economy, a ruined economy and a set of rules that was far more overtly pro-oligarch than what came after, and he was able to pull it in a good direction, you know? And he wasn't even a damn socialist. Admittedly, things were a lot simpler back then.